Hey everyone, how's it going? This is Ryan at Pro Canyon. I just launched a poll for what type of SharePoint platform you're using. I see a lot of you are responding. I appreciate that. So as we wait to people to kind of trickle in, I'm going to let this poll run for a couple minutes. I still see some folks, attendees populate the list. So give us a few minutes here. We'll run the poll, and then once the poll closes, I'll go ahead and share my screen. We'll jump into the demo. So yeah, it's 11:01. Give us like 2 more minutes here as we see some folks kind of come in. Okay, well, I haven't seen any other names jump in here, so let's go ahead and get started. I might pull the plug a little earlier. I appreciate you guys filling out that poll. If you have it, just one more quick second. If you see it, go ahead and hit that for me. I appreciate it. And let's get it moving. Go ahead and close this, and we will share my screen here. Make sure that we're sharing the right screen. There we go. Okay, so IT Helpdesk, Pro Canyon. We're going to talk about, well, like, our version of our professional IT help desk. We have a few different options for a help desk. Today's going to be focusing on IT and asset tracking, and kind of all the various features that come along with it. So the architecture first, kind of the nuts and bolts before I get into actually showing the product. The prerequisites, I guess you could say. These are SharePoint applications, right? So they're going to be deployed into your environment. I saw a lot of Office 365, 2013, 2016 on-prem, right? I mean, wherever your SharePoint farm sits or tenant sits, this is where the applications are going to be, right? So they're deployed into a site of your choosing, and then they run on something that we call NITRO Studio. NITRO Studio is our own set of tools that we use to build our applications with. So the company's been around for coming up on 23 years this January, and we've been developing on SharePoint for a while, 15 years or so. We used to be a help desk in the old Alec public folder system, so it shows you the maturation of the help desk just right there, right? 20 plus years of this product being around. It's quite mature and has developed and grown with SharePoint and over time. So all iterations of on-premise and all iterations of online, classic, modern, 13, 16, 19 in the 365 space. So this NITRO Studio toolset, the reason I like to talk about it is because it's heavily involved in everything we do with our applications. So, what is an application, or what are our applications? Well, they're SharePoint sites, right? Lists, libraries, forms, workflows, etc. And what is that controlled from? Well, you strip everything away. They are SharePoint tools at its base level, but we do use this NITRO Studio tool set to enhance SharePoint when it comes out of the box. Now, for those online, for those on-prem, maybe asking about like InfoPath or Power Platform, and absolutely totally understand that. Our NITRO Studio is intended to be an InfoPath replacement, right? As they're moving away from it in the on-prem space, and as Microsoft moved to the 365 platform, or the Power Platform on Office 365, sorry, we've kind of identified some gaps in between what was offered in the InfoPath space and what Power Platform has to offer as well. I'll start to touch on those as I move through the demo, but it's kind of forced our hand to go out and make this NITRO Studio toolset a full comprehensive InfoPath replacement tool for those in the on-prem world. The cool thing is that it also happens to underlie our application. So I get to say a question a lot, like, hey, does NITRO come with the tool? Absolutely, it does for the site that, where the help desk is deployed. We offer NITRO as a standalone tenant-wide or farm-wide tool as well to go out and kind of DIY your own business processes, but it does come included with all of our applications, in this case, the help desk. So very, 3-minute speech that can be boiled down with, I'm going to show you how the application comes out of the box today, but it can be configured, right? Everything that we use to build the tool comes with it. And that's the positive about SharePoint, right? There's always kind of that debate with SharePoint, the positives and the negatives. Well, the positive is that it's configurable, it's in your environment, and you're going to have the tools to make the changes at your fingertips. Okay, so let's jump into it. So with this in mind, NITRO Studio in mind, I'm gonna work through kind of the different levels of, or the different permissions of a help desk, right? You have your end users or ticket submitters, your IT staff, your technicians, and then your admin staff, the back end people. In NITRO Studio, you can see we have this email and texting. And this comes up a lot. I mean, pretty much any help desk, someone's gonna, we have that base requirement of, can we create a ticket from an email? Absolutely. You can set it up to pull on a shared inbox, help desk, support at, whatever it may be, and pull information over from the email into the body of the request or into certain columns in the ticket as well. Who's it from, subject, the body. You can even parse information from the email into particular columns in the list as well, right? So not only can it just be base level, who's it from, what does it say, but you can also pull information into those custom columns as well, or pre-selected columns or custom columns. So email the ticket creation, yes, absolutely. Now that's kind of the the first iteration of ticket creation, and then we started to grow into this portal system, a self-service, quote unquote self-service. And you guys can't see me with the air quotes, right? Self-service portal for the end users to interact with that back-end department. Now we kind of tackle this in a few ways. So on my main screen here, you see we have a bunch of different applications, right? And Helpdesk obviously being one, can have its own individual portal, something like so, where they, as an end user, they can submit ticket types specific to IT, right? Submit, view iTicket, or view their tickets, view KV articles for their IT department. Also, we have a growing interaction with the team space. I'm going to touch on this a few times throughout today's demo. But in this Teams channel, I've set up this kind of collaboration portal where you can interact with multiple departments. So this is something, quite honestly, I see with most of our customers. We start with a single application and then we start to grow, really leveraging that SharePoint platform, right? So maybe one portal is a help desk portal specific to the IT team, and then maybe we have a portal more at the top level where you can submit a purchase request or a project form or an IT ticket all from one space. So the idea being, a common user interface for your end users. It really, what it is trying to get them to use it, right? I mean, that's the big thing. That's the question that I get asked more often than not is, how can I get my end users to use this tool? And honestly, the easier it is for them to use it, the more likely they are to use it. So that's what the intention is here. Whether it's departmental specific like IT or spanning across multiple applications or multiple departments, the idea is let's make it one landing spot for them. We can brand it with different color schemes, right, and logos and whatnot, and make it their true self-service portal, right? So I'm going to focus on the IT side today. We'll have other webinars coming up for the other applications, but just know that they are there and that the portals, this guy, sorry, wrong tab, this guy, can be purpose-built for all of those different applications. So now submitting a ticket. Architecturally, we have the tickets list inside of the application, right? SharePoint tickets list. What's cool about it is using our forms tool is that you can have multiple forms per SharePoint list. It's like, okay, what does that mean? Well, in this case, and how we put it into practice is that we have an end user form, which we're seeing now on the portal side, to present them a certain set of metadata columns to fill out to complete the ticket, right? You can see their information is populating into the requester information, as well as like category, subcategory, title, priority, things like that. On the back end, all of our forms are written directly onto this list, so the tickets list. So now you can see, once this populates for me, I have my portal form and my technician form. So really the best way to think about the portal is that it's its own application, its own form, it's its own views, it's its own library specific for the end users. So we don't have to worry about permissions, right? Permissions inside of a SharePoint site can be sticky, right? If you have to do item level permissions on the list and break out the users and the technicians all on the same site, it doesn't make necessarily for a cohesive environment, right? You're always worried about what they can see versus what they can't see. Well, in this case, using this portal site with its own kind of subset of NITRO Studio tools and being able to break up multiple forms per SharePoint list, we can control where the end users submit tickets from, what they see, and the information that we capture when a request is submitted. Briefly on the forms tool, I mean, I could spend hours here. Yeah, hours for sure, walking you through the forms tool. it is highly configurable, right? I mean, it's intended to be an info path replacement. So kind of everything that you would want in a forms tool is here, whether it's, dragging and dropping more columns onto the form, or, changing how the form looks and feels, getting rid of, kind of blocky lines and making it more uniform, or switching to a tab based. You can run wild with it all the way down, all the way from the very basic, color schemes, display, to SharePoint permissions, displaying different columns based on submitters or selections. I'll get into that in a second, as well as making columns required, all the way down to, calling out to external data columns or injecting custom JavaScript code or CSS into the form at the base level. So if you're interested in the form designer tool, reach out to me, give me a shout. We'll walk through this separately. But for the ticketing system, again, just as that highlight feature, it is there. So if the form doesn't quite match up to what you need, maybe you want a third category on top of main category, a subcategory, an issue type, or whatever, it is there. It's possible. Okay. But really what I wanted to show you is that we break these up because it helps keep our users inside of their own quote unquote application within the portal. So they title it, they select their category and subcategory. Now permissions, like I was talking about earlier, not a big thing, but it does help. Being able to suggest KB articles to a user when they're submitting a ticket. Hey, these KBs match your request type. It does help. Instead of them going into, let's say, the portal and relying on them to come in and search the KB article library on their own, right? And say, what is a password? Right, and go out and look for a password article on their own. Okay, I have it in there, that's fine. It does search the title and the body of the article, so it does give them as much information as possible. This is a NITRO Studio feature, this list search, so it doesn't spit you out across the entire site collection, right? Like the search the site does in a normal site SharePoint feature. It does make it specific, so we're not worried about, again, permissions and where people get spit out to. But it puts it in front of them. Say, hey, maybe check this out. You can put text over top of this to say, please read or please review before submitting ticket, right? It's just, again, giving them the opportunity to use the end user portal as well as they can, or as much as possible, right? Okay, so when the ticket gets created, we're going to run a workflow. So I'm going to talk about two different types of workflows today. Trigger-based, right, with some actions associated to it, and then manually invoke workflows. So in this case, it's a trigger, right? We're creating a ticket. What happens? Well, the end user is going to get a notification. The internal staff is going to get a notification, the appropriate party, I'll get into in a second. And then we create that ticket and we add it to the end user's view. So what's nice about this is that this list view web part, again, another piece of NITRO Studio. I know I'm going back and forth, but it is, I just trying to highlight how much this underlies the application. It's specifically to them, right? So now they can see tickets they've submitted. They can come in and add notes into the ticket after the fact, right? Just kidding, I found more filter, right? And now it gives them a way to communicate with the technicians through this portal instead of calls, emails, other ways or other avenues they're used to communicating with you. Now we can continue to push them back to the portal and see the status on their ticket, who's assigned, what, have any notes been left for me, etc. As well as closed tickets too. So if they ever have a question about something that came up on a previous ticket, maybe they submitted it last year and like, oh yeah, what was the fix? They can go back in and actually view that ticket in the past as well. Okay. So interaction with the technicians, submitting tickets, viewing KB articles, all great. Now, I talked about iterations, right, earlier, submitting a ticket via email, using the self-service portal to submit a request. The next generation of ticket submission is our AI services, bots within Teams. Another way to interact with Teams. Right, so I know this is more targeted towards the 365 space. So for those on-prem, bear with me for a second. I won't spend too much time here. But we do offer AI services inside of Teams channels, and we do offer that Teams integration like I was showing earlier. But let's say, well, let's be real. A lot of our end users are not going to come into the portal and view the KB articles and then submit a ticket, right? 50-50, let's say. So we need to find a way to make it more of a guided experience. My my dev manager says that guided versus self-service experience. And if anyone tells him that I used his saying, we're gonna have problems. No, I'm kidding. But I do like the saying. It's a guided experience, right? So I mean, you can see I'm interacting with the bot right here. I woke it up just now, and going back to that conversation of multiple applications inside of Procanyon, you kind of select and pick and choose which ones you need service for. But what are we doing? We're basically getting them to fill the form out. Who are you? What's the ticket title? What's your category and subcategory of your ticket? Oh, I forgot my password. Now, instead of just suggesting the articles on the ticket itself, we're going to put them in front of you. So here are the articles that the KB articles that match your request. This is a question and answer maker, right? Q&A. And then what are the actions associated to, what are the actions that you would need in a ticket? Okay, an issue's been resolved. I want to submit a ticket. I want to start over, etc. What's nice about this is that they can still submit a ticket from this interaction, right? They don't have to go anywhere else. But now we can start to store some analytics against this. So if we're just using let's just finish the workflow so I can store this, submit a ticket. So let's say we're just relying on them to use that portal, right? To come in here and view the KB. Well, we're not actually, I get questions a lot about, oh, can help us do this or that or the other, and it really depends on where we're pulling that logic from. So what I mean by that is, they come in here and they search this KB. We don't really know how they're interacting with this article, this blue screen of death, how successful it's being. We just know that it's there and it's them for them to view it or to be sent to the end user when the ticket is submitted. Using this AI services in the bot, it gives us the ability to store that interaction in the list in the site schema to be reported on, to be viewed after the fact. What articles are being, what articles are creating tickets? What articles are being resolved? What flows are being started over? Interaction by status, monthly interactions, how the articles are trending, what ratings the users are giving the articles. So now we can start to flesh out that KB article library even more and make the bot more effective. In this case, this Q&A maker, this question and answer service is only as effective as the KB article library. And the more we use this Scott, who's also on the call. So if you do have questions, I forgot to mention that. If you have any questions that pop up, go ahead and fire those off. Scott is here and answering calls. But I'm gonna use one of his sayings as well, this bot telemetry, this services to get it up and running. It gives us a peek into what's actually effective and can start to grow that KB article library inside of your organization. Okay, so that covers end users, right? Email submission, portal submission, and through this AI service. Now, once the ticket is created, sorry, I'm a little OCD. Gotta get rid of that message on Teams here. It's just gonna flash at me. Well, once the ticket is created, how do we assign it? And that question is open, right? I mean, everyone's ticket assignment is always a little different, right? We base it off of, out of the box, it can be based on the category and the issue type of the request, whether it's a team or an individual person, right? I mean, really what we're doing is we're sending a notification, so in our product app, we have these notifications that go out on ticket creation, ticket assignment, ticket resolution, basically your rich text email templates that get sent to a person of our choosing when these tickets are created, right? Your ticket's been received. Ticket has been created, right? Amplify and type, right? So basically it's okay, when that trigger happens, we're going to send this action of, create the ticket, send an email. Now who does it go to? And again, whether it's category, owner, individual person, based on the subcategory, being able to set up round robin, auto assigning based on number of tickets assigned to the person, or just going to the next person in line, going to everyone and then plucking it for yourself, or going to a dispatch person or a level one and then being able to escalate, all possible. I mean, really the ticket gets created, the notifications go out, and then it's going to be up to you guys in terms of who is assigned. So open, as many options as we'd like there. Then one other thing, again, just real quickly here, on the workflow side, I won't spend too much here, but whenever I talk about notifications, more often than not, I kind of always mean email, right? But again, in the 365 space or the newer iterations of SharePoint on premise, we do have these Teams interactions. And we can generate requests or notifications to be sent to Teams as well. So if you would prefer that, so just like in the Forms tool, all of our workflows are list specific. So here are my triggers, right? I was talking about earlier. When an item is created in this case, what are we going to do? Well, more often than not, we're going to send an email, right? That rich text email template I was showing in the product app. Well, another option is to actually send a mail to a Teams channel. Very similar process, very similar setup, right? Creating a mail template. Now you're just getting the notification in Teams as opposed to via email. Again, it's split. It's not required, it's there. It just depends on how much or how little your organization's interacting with the team space. And Microsoft's pushing it a lot internally, right? So we have to grow with it. And you can see we're starting to trying to get our fingers in everything Teams related. Okay, so we talked about ticket assignment, ticket notification. Now we focus a little bit on the admin side. Now let's talk about the technicians. Once a ticket is created, I'm going to close out some of these tabs here. How tickets are viewed and assigned. In this instance, it's role-based permissions, right? So not only do we have like our end users, technicians, and admins, also within technicians, we need like managers and staff workspace, right? So in the demo site, luckily on both, so I can see like a 10,000 foot view, open tickets, unassigned, overdue. This is our tiles web part, and these are reporting web parts. Again, another piece of NITRO Studio. So it just makes it look clean. Standard SharePoint can get a little drab, just kind of a list here on the side, and I don't know, sometimes I feel like SharePoint kind of loses its way from a look and feel perspective. These web parts are nice, and it's kind of cool too because, well, kind of cool. I think it's cool. Typically inside of SharePoint, you have multiple lists inside of a site. You have to change the page, right? In our ticketing system, we talked about the tickets already. We have two other lists that go along with it. We have problem and change request, problem management and change request. They have their own set of metadata and columns associated with it. We'll get into those in a sec. But instead of having to see those dashboards and reload the page, we have this list roll up web part that actually makes it, being able to tab through. I call it our tab web part. I don't know, just stuck in bad habits, I guess, but being able to tab through and see information across all the major lists in the application as opposed to having to load it. Not a huge thing, right? It's just nice. It's just a nice feature on top of SharePoint to be able to use it more effectively. And again, that's going to be a recurring theme. How easy can we make it for for not only our end users to use the application, but for our technicians as well. Now I've kind of shifted hats, right? We're looking at the manager's workspace. Now let's focus on the technician. I get assigned a ticket. What do I do? Okay. When the ticket comes in, we have a few features at the top here. So I'm going to call back when I said I have two types of workflows I'm going to talk about. I have my trigger-based and I have my manually invoked workflows, my custom actions. So this is exactly that. They're manually invoked workflows. I'm going to hold off on these now. These are what these buttons are. I'm going to touch on these in a second after I kind of work my way through the ticket here. We'll get into these in a bit more detail. But let's talk about this email feature. Another piece of NITRO Studio. I know, surprise, surprise. I equate email manager to like signatures and Outlook on client, right? You know how like, I switched over to online now, but like in the old Outlook on client space, we used to create a bunch of signatures for the different types of emails we sent and say, oh, signature 1 for password reset, signature 2 for, a network connectivity problem or VPN access, right? So the same kind of principle, you can create these different mail templates and have them be automatically sent to the user, either from your account, a no reply, a shared inbox. In this instance, I've set up to go to request here. Hit send. Pre-configured mail templates sent to the user. Now, the nice thing here is that we've created an email thread related to this request. So now I can see both incoming and outgoing emails related to this ticket. Not a huge thing, but it is a time saver, right? Instead of having to copy and paste it from Outlook into the ticket, it does it automatically for you. It also highlights one of the biggest features of all of our applications, associated items. Oh, I closed my forms tool, son of a gun. So earlier on in my intro spiel, I was talking about some of the limitations that we experience inside of like Power Platform, or now that, oh no, not test list. That's okay. Let's reopen. Sorry guys. He was talking and wasn't paying attention. So the limitations, being able to, one of the big things that we use a lot in SharePoint, or one of the things we have to circumvent in SharePoint is permissions. We kind of talked about it already. I've hit on that topic. But it's like, how do we connect multiple items together? How the term for the on-prem world, for those who know it, is how do I recreate repeating rows in MS Forms or Power Apps or our Power Platform, right? And in practice, what it is actually connecting multiple SharePoint lists together, right? We call it associated items. So it basically gives you the idea to connect a list, a sublist, through a lookup column, let's say associated tasks, and tie it to a parent list. So if we look at the tickets list as the parent list, and in this case, email history is a sublist with its own form, with its own set of metadata, with its own information associated to it, right? But now through this associated items feature, we're allowing those two lists to be connected together. So why is that important? Well, it makes it nice because if we're dealing with one single SharePoint item, we lose a lot of flexibility with what we can do. Assigning subtasks to people, which we'll get into in a second. Approval processes, right? If you only approve one item, that's it. The approval dies there. You can have multiple levels of approvals. Form flexibility, form load time, right? If all of these columns and all of these forms were on this, if all these metadata columns, all these sublists were on the parent form, it would take a year and a half to load the thing, So it does give us a lot of flexibility with SharePoint Online using these associated items feature. I wouldn't say it's our most important feature, but it's right up there. I mean, it's something that you're going to see we use a lot in all of our applications. But the ticket itself, I mean, I'll try to keep this. I'll try to keep this straightforward. The ticket form, like I talked about in the portal form, this is configurable, right? I mean, so if you need to capture more information, you can. I mean, we have the first tab is really about, what was said when the ticket was submitted, who submitted it, what information did they put in, who's assigned to the request. Now, on the due dates, SLAs, response times, due times, this is something that is kind of 50-50, to be honest. I talk to, I probably do 10 to 15 of these calls per week when it comes to Helpdesk. And when people ask me about SLAs, well, let me rephrase. I get questions about SLAs about half the time, right? So what I like to do and what I suggest people do is that we come to our help site, croakgaming.help. It really has a plethora of information in terms of NITRO Studio and our applications. But with SLAs, we can run wild with it. I like I said, I don't want to spend too much time here because it may miss a lot of people. But for those who are interested, I mean, basically, it's a workflow that we're running on the due date or any of the date columns that we can create: response time, assign time, due time, and we're running a business calculation on those dates to say, hey, if this ticket is still open, what I want to do is I want to update a time to say, hey, auto-populate this column, 1 day out, 2 days out, 4 days out, to make sure that we're matching our SLAs internally. So it's a culmination of things, right? We have this NITRO Studio tool set. We're using that workflow tool and the columns and the forms to make these SLAs happen. And then it's pretty much pre-configured and ready to go. It's just a matter of updating a 1 for a 0 or a 1 for a 2 or a 2 for a 3, right? To match those date and time specific to you. And it can get as granular as every 15 minutes. Now, obviously that's aggressive, right? But it can run quite often if needed. So SLAs do live there. If you're interested and you want to know more, you want to take a deeper dive, ping me. We're happy to set up a private call. We can talk about that in more detail, how SLAs are used internally and how we can make it work for you guys. When you're ready to close the end user information, that's funny. When you're ready to close the ticket out, well, this is kind of a nice piece. It highlights form permissions. Again, not a small thing, but it does kind of show you can highlight different columns or show different columns based on different selections or who you are, etc. But this is a rich text column, so screenshots, copy paste, attachments, right? this gets sent to the end user, right? When the ticket is equal to resolved, we can send this to the end user. Now, what's nice about this is that we can also send KB articles to our end user through here. This, going back to the portal form, right? We showed different KBs based on the category and the subcategory of the ticket. This is where we store that. So not only can they see it on the front end, but you can also resend it from the back end. But you can run a workflow here as well to create a KB article from this ticket. What we do is we take this information, resolution notes, we populate into that KB article list, and then it's available for the end users, either internal, well, it could be either internal or external. So let's kind of touch on that real quick. So we do have the ability when filling out these KB articles, so you can create them from a ticket, right? Like I'm showing here, and add it to your KB article library. You can also create a KB article on your own, right? I mean, it's up to you if you find a way, or if you find a content you want to add to your KB, and then you can choose your target audience, right? Internal staff or external, and what makes that available to your end users. And then work log. Internal notes, date and time stamped, you know, who added it, when they added it. So if you have multiple technicians handling a ticket, you can see, you know, what they said, or someone out, or whatever it may be. You have the ability to see where we are in the ticket process. Okay, now the last tab, related items. Email history we talked about. So you can see this associated items feature coming in heavily already. We have subtasks and we have problems and change requests. Okay, so associated tasks. I see this most common, well, I see it used quite a bit actually. It can be, you know, just as simple as assigning a task to someone in the in IT to say, hey, I need you to do A, B, and C. It really could really be anyone in the company, right? Need A, B, C, right? Who gets assigned to, due dates, things like that. Now you can see in my dashboard here, right, my tasks kind of hidden in the background. So not only will you see the tickets assigned to you, but you can see the tasks assigned to you, right? And it can be to anyone. There we go. This comes up, I get this question a lot in like new user requests. You know, let's say, yeah, again, probably about half the time. A request comes in, HR submits a ticket, and we're gonna bring Ryan on as a new hire. Okay, well, the parent ticket is new hire for Ryan. All the subtasks are, he needs a laptop, he needs to be added to AD, he needs access to the, he needs a 365 account, you know, he needs end user access to the help desk, he needs, you know, access to HR system, right? So all those subtasks can be created as part of the workflow. And then all those subtasks can be assigned to different people within the organization, or you can go in and kind of assign them as one-offs. So different use cases for the tasks here, associated tasks, but it is a nice feature, again, using that associated items tool, because we have the ability to create multiple tasks that roll up into a parent item. Okay, so that's the ticketing system in a nutshell. You know, kind of nitty gritty, dirty run through of it. The kind of standard ticket gets created, ticket gets worked. Now, the other two main lists in the ticketing system are problem and change management. So I teased them earlier when I had the form open. I was talking about custom actions. So problem and change requests are their own lists in the system. So I can always come in, if I close this out, and I can create a problem, and I can create a change request, and I can view their various dashboards, all independent of the ticket. I like the ability, I like showing it in relation to the ticket, because I feel like a lot of our flows and what happens in a change request, or what happens in a problem kind of flow from a base ticket, right? So that's how I like to show them, but they are their own independent entities, so their own list with their own form. Okay, so the reason I teased the custom actions here earlier is because we can run a very simple workflow, like assign this ticket to me, rerun the workflow to say, go ahead and, you know, Ryan's been assigned to your ticket, and the end user gets a notification to let them know that I've been assigned, and it goes to my queue, right? Now, the more complex side is we create a problem or change request from the child ticket, right? So a problem, right? Category and issue type of a problem and title. The easiest way to describe this, you get, I'm trying to think of something. Internet down, you know, something silly like that, right? Where you get like 15 tickets all related to the same problem, right? Quote unquote problem. So what you can do is you can come in, you can create a parent problem. Internet down. And associate all these sub-tickets to it, right? So now when, internet issue. Now when you close out this parent problem, right, you can assign all the sub-tickets to it, have its own staff, its own team, associated tasks, its own work log, affected components, right? But when now this problem has been created and it's been associated to this ticket, right? So I created it from the ticket. Oh, that's in the edit, sorry. Now I can come in and I can associate this problem to this ticket. Now when the parent problem is closed, all the subsequent tickets are closed, right? So now you don't have to go through and update each ticket as an independent entity. You tie it to the parent problem. When the problem is closed, all the end users are notified, all the tickets are closed, right? It gives you kind of a way to blanketly close all the tickets at once when that problem is updated. Now change requests. Problem is definitely related to the tickets, right? I mean, like I said, you can create the problem and go back and tie the tickets to it, but in one way or another, it's a ticket is associated to it. Change requests, I feel like, can be a little bit more independent based on what type of change we're going through or what your change process looks like, right? So a change is, in this case, I pulled up need a new headset, but like maybe let's say need a new laptop. Right, something like that. Something that might actually require a change here. So what you can do is you can create a change request and automatically associate it to the ticket, right? Ryan is requesting a new laptop. Basically, what are we doing? We need an approval process here. So the ticket comes in, we're creating a change request to see if a purchase can be made for me, right? Simple, Who's going to be the approver? Does it need to be approved? Who's going to be the owner, the description, the priority, the requester, right? Basic stuff. Now, let's say we need to go through a software upgrade or a hardware update, and we need to go through a more extensive change. That's where a change can be its own process, right? Details of the change, components, rollback options, risk level, risk description, testing, training requirements. Again, the form's flexible, so if you need more metadata here, you absolutely can, right? But it gives you an idea of what we can capture from a change request perspective. This part's easy, right? The form side's easy. Now, the workflow behind it is a lot more fun, right? Updating columns and making the form specific to you, no problem. We can use the form design tool. Now, here's the custom action, right? That manually invoked workflow I was talking about earlier. Scott makes fun of me because he laughs at me because I call these the warm and fuzzies, right? The green status arrow to let you know that the change request went off appropriately, and it's been created. So what does that mean? It's been created, the workflow's run. Okay, so we see a new change request here has been added, right? So internally, we use this advanced approvals app in NITRO Studio. And it's cool because we can make these approval processes as complex or as simple as we need. So you can see I already have one up here for change requests, right? So change request is created. Now we need to give the change request approver some options. They can approve it, they can deny it, or they can send it back. And now who's going to be our approver? So we have level 1. Let's say we have level 2, right? On level 2. Now, the approvers can be very simple. One person. It can be multiple people. It can be a group of people, right? Now, all approvers need to approve. If any approver denies, request is denied. If any approver denies, your request will be, updated as such. 50%, 5 or more, right? So now, like I was saying, it can be very straightforward. Or it can be, hey, I have a group of 10 people that meet once a month to discuss change requests. I want to send this to them prior and make sure that 6 or more approved to make sure that we move on to talk about this at the meeting. It does give you that ability to kind of flesh this out. And these mail templates are those rich text mail templates that we talked about, during the initial notification process. You have complete control over these, what they say, what gets added from the list item into the body of the email, right? Maybe who the requester is, their department, right? The due date, etc. So complete control over what the templates say as well as who they go to. Now, associated items coming back again. Okay, because the approvers get notified, now what? Okay, they get an approval task assigned to them. And it's using that sub item. So we have the change request as the parent list, and we have the approval items as the sub list. Because if we need multiple levels of approvers, we need multiple items to approve, right? If we approve the one item, we're dead in the water, okay? So that's where the associated items feature is so important. So what happens is we see the change request as we are filling it out on the form, right? Our different, let's find one here that has one. You know, our different testing options, rollback options, right, etc. Our details, our general, okay. But now we also see this new tab called approval details. And you can see this one is assigned to Scott here. So Scott can come in here and he's been notified that he has a new approval task assigned to him. And in that email, he's going to get a link to the approval task. He can come in here and he can physically update this task on his own, mark it as approved, add comments, etc. This is going to highlight permissions on the form because I'm not Scott. I can't update this, right? So that's just kind of a touch on what we were talking about earlier from a permissions perspective. But Scott's got the notification. He can come in and update the approval task. Question I get the most almost immediately when I say, hey, here's the approval task, they can come in and complete it. First word out of most people's mouth is, can they update it via email, right? Absolutely. You know, we use this a lot in our purchase request feature. You know, the term is lazy approvals, right? Inside of, you know, the space. Ooh, okay, that's not what I want. And basically, this is internally, where am I? This is a choice column. Not the nitty gritty, just kind of an overview of how we do it. This approval decision list, or this approval decision right here, it's a choice column. Approve, deny, send back, right? So we give those people the same option in the body of the email. Please approve, deny, or send this back. They select one of them. We parse the email title, like using our email sync tool, based on the approved word here. We update that approval decision, and you know, if they add here, get added to the comments, right? So they can come in and update the task, or they can update this via email, okay? Now the other option, if we want to go down this path, is the bot side. Okay, so again, this is 365 specific, or you know, for those that can have the bots. But let's say you get an approval task assigned to you, get a little ping here on your bot saying, "Hey, you have a new task," or you can run different commands on the bot. In this case, it's going to be view my approvals. So I'm going to get a request. Here are all my different approvals, just like in a task itself or in the email. I have the ability to view the approval here, except now I'm not leaving the team interface. I get the adaptive card that pops up. I can click to review the request. That'll take me directly to the one internally, or I can approve it from the interface here in the adaptive card. So now I'm working in Teams. Someone submits a change request. I get a little ping on my NITRO bot saying, hey, this has been assigned to you. I can click on it, view the details, view the adaptive card, approve it right from here, and I never have to leave the Teams interface. Very handy. Definitely nice when it comes to both the end user side and the technician or the approval side. You know, again, it comes back to that conversation of how can we get people to use the application. And I think making it easy for them is obviously top of mind, right? The more easy it is to use the tool, the more likely it is going to be used, right? So recap, we talked about end users submitting tickets, email, portals, Q&A maker, and the bot. Technicians running through tickets, SLAs, assignments, notifications, problem management, change requests, the approval tasks, and how those are updated and approved. Now, the second part of this demo, as I close some tabs out here, because I'm a little OCD, is going to be the asset tracking side. So if you do have questions real quick, if you have questions about the help desk or you want to come back and you want to talk about NITRO or SLAs or any of the things I kind of briefly touched on, just ping me. Sales at Crow Canyon's fine, or my first name dot my last name, and we'll set up the time and walk through it. Cool. Same goes for assets. Just want to make that point on help desk. If you're like, oh, I really want to know about that feature, we're getting close to the top of the hour here, so I do need to move on to assets. But if you want to come back and chat, just give me a holler. Okay, so asset tracker. Very similar to the Helpdesk, and well, in the sense of the base level architecture, right? It's a NITRO Studio application that circles around a few major lists. You can see them here on the left, right? Giveaways, assets, software assets, vendors, and contracts. So an asset, like our assets, are really about storing all the metadata associated to an asset, right? Let's take this laptop. My laptop? Yeah. Okay, so I open up one of my assets here. Here's my form. So like we talked about in the form, and the forms tool, we can make any of this configurable to your guys' requirements. And that's quite honestly the biggest thing I talk about when we do asset tracking. It's, you know, adding in asset info and adding in different columns to match internal requirements. So that's obviously there. But as you can see here on the asset info tab, title, asset ID, asset type list, we actually use quite a bit here in the middle left-hand corner. You know, category, make, model, serial number. A lot of this is tied to this asset type list. So when we add a new asset, it's going to update automatically for you. You can also see some permissions we've added in on the form, right? So computer and software tabs, if you keep your eyes up here at the top, are not there for a projector, but they pop right back up when I add in a laptop, right? So just permission things. Again, not big, but it highlights what we can do from a form flexibility perspective, how truly configurable the applications are. Before I get too much further, well, you know, who it's assigned to. This is a people picker column. So, you know, reading from an Active Directory or SharePoint user profiles, you can just type in who the request is assigned to. Before I get too much further, two questions that come up a lot with asset tracking. How do I get my assets into the system, right? And data sync connections. So there's a few options. Where is my help site? So again, I know, broken record, but the help site really has a lot of cool features here. If you just want to take a poke around, if we piqued any interest, Excel to SharePoint. So we do have an Excel to SharePoint import tool that helps if you have your assets in a CSV file or an Excel spreadsheet. We can update, you know, those assets from that file into the asset list, right? That's definitely a possibility. Now, pulling them from another third-party tool or continuing sync, right? We do this a lot. I mean, honestly, like, you know, let me go back here. You know, data sync with assets, it's very big. I mean, customers on the call, or, you know, there's current customers of ours on this call right now that use our data sync service, whether it be SCCM, Landsweeper, Intune, right? Other data sync services that allow you to have a network finding tool that works in association with our asset tracking tool. You know, that comes up 90% of the asset tracking calls, very much possible in NITRO Studio. And then we have these KV articles that flesh it out here on our help site. And again, if we want to set up time to chat about these in more detail, just give me a holler. We'll do that. But yeah, you can either import the assets from Excel into the list. And we do also have that sync feature available here too. Now, barcode and serial number, barcode scanning. Interesting, right? It's becoming more and more prominent as we move into the mobile-based world. So as I open up NITRO again here on the asset side, we'll kind of walk through this process. I'll talk a little bit about mobile. We all use our iPhone or Android a lot, right? And positives and negatives, SharePoint's coming back. We are a SharePoint-based tool. We get to utilize what Microsoft's already put out there. Since we went through the painstaking process of making all of our applications Teams accessible, modern UI accessible, SharePoint accessible, right? We can leverage the apps that Microsoft's created out of the box, Teams apps, SharePoint Online apps, to access all of our Pro-Canyon applications through, right? So do we have a mobile responsiveness? Absolutely. You know, you can kind of see that here in the Forms tool. I have this preview feature where it shows you what the form looks like when it scales down to iPad size or mobile size, right? The reports scale down, the tiles web parts scale down. It looks very clean in both Teams and inside of the SharePoint app, as well as on the browser. Both are possible. The reason I bring that up is because the more and more we dive into the asset space, the more questions come up about barcode scanning, right? Now, we are a SharePoint-based tool, so I don't have any hardware, right? I don't have physical hardware to go around and scan items with. That's not us, right? But with the growing expansion of phones and phone cameras, we can create barcode and QR columns that can be utilized. You can basically read the barcodes that you have already and update that particular asset on the back end. So I think we do this pretty much, now every time in the modern COVID world, we go out and scan a QR code on a restaurant's menu, and it opens it up on our phone to a browser. Same principle, right? You have a barcode that matches an asset, you scan it with your phone's camera or an iPad camera, whatever it may be. It opens up that, if the barcode exists in the asset tracking list, let me say, it's going to open up that edit form of the asset internally, right? Like here, it's going to open up this form to be updated to say, oh, it's not in Benicia anymore, it's in Boston. Or if it doesn't have a barcode, it's going to create you to fill out a new asset to be added to the system. So mobile responsiveness, barcodes possible. We do have a limitation to the current barcodes we support. Again, if it's a question, just give me a shout. We'll talk through it. But that is definitely possible, and that's what that barcode column is coming from. Now, are there metadata on the asset? I mean, that's the big stuff, really. I mean, when it comes to the assets, those are the hot topics. Can I sync with other applications? How do I get my assets in? Tell me about barcode scanning. Everything else here, definitely important. This is going to be very specific to the organization. So is it, date of decommission, depreciation value date, do we want notifications around the date of decommission? Do I want to notify the appropriate person 90 days before, 60 days before, 30 days before, right? And how often we want those notifications to go out, just like the SLAs that we talked about based on some sort of trigger, right? Image, the computer tab, are we going to pull this over from Intune or Landsweeper, this information related to the laptop in this case. Now, recurring maintenance. So the asset tool can be its own standalone application. It does not have to be tied to the help desk if you don't want it, right? If you're like, oh, I just need an IT asset management application, independent from help desk, that's totally fine. It also connects with the application as well. So in this case, we're looking at like a maintenance date, setting up a recurring maintenance schedule for your asset types. Going back to that asset type list, we enable the maintenance schedule and it creates these tasks for us. Now, what you can also do, so these can be assigned to the appropriate people and track as maintenance tasks. People who are looking at the IT help desk create tickets from these, right? I'm going to create a ticket, it's going to be automatically assigned to the asset, and then we can see all open tickets now associated to the asset. So not only do we have maintenance tasks, recurring maintenance schedules for assets. Oh, where am I? Sorry, clicked on the wrong one. Recurring maintenance schedules, but also being able to assign tickets to assets as well. So let's say I come in and I'm having an issue with my laptop, Pavlon can see it's an HP Envy 360 and that's the asset he's assigned to my ticket type. So not only that can be an independent entity, or it can be tied to the ticketing system. It is quite nice. Let's talk about this. Check in and check out. So for those of you who have like a loaner bank of assets or assets that maybe change hands, we do have this workflow to actually check in and check out assets and keep a running history of the assets and who had them, how long they had them for. So let's assign this to Scott. He's going to have it for 1 week. Traveling. I remember when we travel. Scott was traveling for a show and needs a laptop, right? Okay. Got the warm and fuzzies, right? The green check marks, fire off. Now I come over to check in and check out, and now I can see a running history of any time this asset's changed hands. We can see I had it for a week last year. Were any notes left on it? Or any tickets opened up against it, right? Now we can see Scott has it. He has it for an expected check-in date. Again, here's that date column, right? So he's going to get a notification. IT is going to get a notification that this asset's due back, and they can be as as frequent as you'd like. We can also come in here and change the expected check-in date. I actually decided to extend my stay for the weekend, and I'm going to come back on the 10th. Extended my stay, right? Basically, again, so now you see everything kind of coming full-fledged or full circle, right? Repeating items, associated items in the NITRO forms, notifications around the workflows, right? And being able to tie them all together. Ooh, installed software. Let's talk about this. So one of our lists in the asset tracking tool, software assets. This has become more and more prominent with the Microsoft moving towards Intune, right? I kind of mentioned that a few times, but it also stores your software licenses. You need a place to handle that or store that, not only if you have those other third-party tools, or just as a, something to be had in asset tracking. But it's a list, it's a list for where all of your software assets can live. Your versions, your statuses, who the vendor was, what are the license keys associated to that particular software asset, right? Your different license keys. Oh, I don't have any there. Hold on, let's find one that does. Sorry, guys. Basically just like kind of an overview of what's going on. Okay, messing with me. What's going on with your different assets. Okay, all right. Well, I've clicked on enough. I'm going to show you here in a second what available assets, like how many you've purchased, how many are installed, how many are available. Now, this is important when in the asset form because we're tying these together. Okay, so associated items, right? We're tying the software asset list, the hardware assets. We're picking which one we need to add to it. NITRO Studio Enterprise. I'm adding this to new user, right? Okay, ticket comes in. I need a NITRO Studio admin license. Here it is. It gets added to that ticket. This asset gets associated to it. Now we run a custom action, a submit action button to say, hey, do you have proper permissions? Do we have the appropriate number of licenses? If so, go ahead and update it. We get the green check marks, and that software asset gets added to the hardware asset. So again, just like anything else in the system, it can be tracked as its own independent entity, or it can be tied to a parent list, in this case, the hardware assets. Related items, manuals, warranties, contracts, document libraries or lists that can be associated to the assets. And we store a lot of that information in like the vendors or the contracts list. So very similarly to, that related items tab that I showed in the Helpdesk tool and I showed in the asset tool, that stores a lot of information and that gives us the ability to connect all these together, right? So contact details for the vendor, the contracts we have opened up against them, the related assets we have with them, both hardware as well as software. And if we click on one of these, it brings us right back to where we started. So the idea is being able to seamlessly transfer from list to list to form, as well as keep it segmented out enough. So if we do have to put unique permissions here or hide things away or create unique dates or things or unique workflows associated to these various lists, we absolutely can. Well, we are just about at the top of the hour. And I do want to kind of touch on any questions that were maybe asked that I didn't cover during the call. So Scott, anything you want to bring up or touch on?
No, I was able to answer the questions that came up. There were questions about integration and with Azure and email sync. I think they've been answered. I think that they probably at this point too, if anyone has questions, they can or wants to see a further demo. You've mentioned how to get in touch with you, right, or us here, and we'll take it from there because certainly very interesting demo. A lot going on there. A lot with our help desk, asset management, the bots. Really a full-featured solution. So if anyone's looking for that kind of thing, this is something to pursue further, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I am pretty much here all day, every day, as Scott can attest. So if anyone wants to set up a time, just give us a shout. Scott, anything you can think of to add that I might have missed that you thought like, oh, we should cover this or that?
No, I think you're good. And there, if anyone's interested in pricing, then of course, talk to us. We do have government pricing. We're on different schedules, and we're also a nonprofit. I mean, we have nonprofit pricing. We also have government pricing, and we have, what's that, government? Yeah, that's, yeah, just different things, bundle
Yeah.
pricing, all kinds of different ways of working it out. Just talk to us about it, right?
Right. And certified small business with California.
That's what I was trying to say. Certified
There
small
you go.
business California.
Yeah. Okay.
Got
Yeah.
that. All
Cool.
right, thanks. All
Well, we
right.
just hit the 12 o'clock mark, so we'll go ahead and wrap it up and let everyone, Laura and everyone get along. So, Scott, thanks for coming on and answering the questions. Thanks everyone for attending. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. Okay,
Appreciate
bye.
it, guys.
Bye.